Hello everyone, back tuning into today's first video. We're doing JMA Friday for today's first video. So as always on a Friday, we've got your month head look ahead, and this is going to take us into the middle of January, can you believe, 2020. So we'll see what the JMA has to show first of all. Then we'll have a look at CFS V2. We'll compare the two, and we'll see what we can come up with for the next 4 weeks. Will there be any sign of drier weather and an end to the deluge? We'll have a look in a moment. Just to say that the second video coming up later on today will be the week to 10 day video update, and that of course will contain all of the regular features. Right, so begin with the JMA 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from the North Pole view down. So this is the North Pole of the Northern Hemisphere just here. That's the Arctic around there, and of course the mid-latitudes, Northern Hemisphere, are around here. Blue is extrapolating to below average heights, which is low pressure. Yellow, orange and red extrapolate to above average heights, which is high pressure. These are broken down into weekly periods, so the first weekly period will take us from today, 20th of December, through to the 27th. The coming week looks unsettled with the JMA. We've got low pressure sitting out to west us and coming into the UK as well. There is quite a bit of high pressure up to the north. But not really in a position to produce anything cold for us. We're just continuing with these westerly winds. So continue to be unsettled, potentially very unsettled, with low pressure bringing spells of rain in from off the Atlantic. All change for week 2. This is the 27th of December to the 3rd of January. Big changes appearing with above average heights, then high pressure building almost over top of the country and ridging to the north as well. Low pressure gets pushed out into the middle of the Atlantic. Jet streams doing something a bit like that. Winter will be biting in the east of Europe with this trough of low pressure. Winter will really be biting in the east and the southeast of Europe. For us, we're just under this ridge of high pressure. Now, it would be cold under that ridge. There would be frost and fog, yes. But the proper cold, wintry, snowy weather is actually in the east and the southeast of Europe, with that trough of low pressure digging in from the west of Russia. So places like the Black Sea, the Balkans, maybe Greece, would be in for a bite of winter there sometime around the new year. Whereas we're under that high pressure delivering, no doubt, quite cold weather, but cold through frost and fog rather than anything particularly snowy. And we go through to weeks 3 and 4, which gets us from the 3rd through to the 17th of January. So the above average heights continuing to sit quite close to the UK and much of Western Europe. Low pressure again is out in the Atlantic. Flame jet will be doing something a bit like that. So again, winter could still be biting across the eastern part of Europe. For us, again, we're in about ridge of high pressure. It's a little bit weaker in weeks 3 and 4 compared to week 2. Reason for that is that it's a 2-weekly anomaly. There may be some transitioning going on, so by week 4, maybe this low pressure in the Atlantic could be breaking through again, returning us back to unsettled conditions, possibly. But certainly the JMA, sort of at the end of December and through the early part of January, the JMA seems to want to go for quite an anticyclonic signal. It seems to want to settle things down, so that's the main story. End the deluge for a while anyway, and turn us drier, probably with frost and fog, with a bite of proper winter across eastern parts of Europe, where of course it has been very, very mild so far this winter. Let's have a look at the tropical and mid-latitude view. So this is how the 500 millibar height anomaly looks for week 1, which again is from the 20th to the 27th of December. No, it's not actually, that's week 2. So let's see if we can find week 1, see what we've done with that. So we haven't got week 1. No, there it is. That's week 1. Right, sorry about that. Got a bit mixed up with the old charts. So that's week 1's 500 millibar height anomaly. North Pole is off the chart up here, but of course we already had a look at that view down, so we know what's going to be going on from the pole view down. So the week 1 anomaly is unsettled, low pressure coming in off the Atlantic, and yes, bringing in those westerly winds as well. We'd expect this to be unsettled week. It's also a mild week. Remember, this is 20th, 27th of December, so it does encompass Christmas. Above average temperature anomalies, especially so for England and Wales in the weekend. Very, very mild across much of Europe as well, you'll notice. Look at those temperature anomalies across most parts of Europe and much of America as well. Both sides of the Atlantic really, really mild over this Christmas period, or up to Christmas period. And wet, of course, with low pressure dominating, rainfall anomalies continue to be above average. So a very mild but also wet week to come. Right, this is week 2. So this is taking us from the 27th of December to the 3rd of January. And week 2 has that area of above average heights appearing over the top of the country. High pressure takes over. There's a trough of low pressure across the southeast of Europe as well. Now, temperature anomalies are still above average here, despite this ridge building across the country. Temperature anomalies still above average. Notice much of eastern, southeast Europe also looking very mild. A bit surprised about that, but the model is still going for very mild conditions on both sides of the Atlantic. North America or Eastern America, anyway, also very mild. Any cold is forced back into central parts of Russia, seemingly. And then over into Siberia. But come back to us anyway. It looks pretty mild there as we go through that New Year period from the 27th of December to the 3rd of January. Now, the model will look at the high pressure and it will assume that on the surface it's as mild as it is aloft. Of course, in winter, it's not as straightforward as that, because if skies are clear, you will quickly radiate the warmth out into space and the surface will turn cold with frost and fog. So these models always sort of see an area of high pressure in the winter and assume it will be as mild on the surface as it is in the upper atmosphere. It's not always as straightforward as that, however. So I suspect under that ridge of high pressure, it would probably be quite a bit colder than that is showing from frost and from fog too for the west of Europe. And then weeks 3 and 4, which gets us from the 3rd to the 17th of December. Again, the above average heights are over top of the country. Low pressure is out to the west. Probably, if anything, putting that area of high pressure under stress as we go further into January. Temperature anomalies look like that, so still close to average or a little bit above. Not as mild as it is in weeks 1 and 2, but still generally on the mild of an average side. It's relatively dry as well, especially for England and Wales. Possibly into going a bit more unsettled for Scotland. That could be a sign that eventually the Atlantic will begin to break that ridge down. But it does look as though the JMA wants to have a fairly extended spell of drier weather from the new year into the early part of January. Let's compare that with the CFS V2. So these are again 500 millibar heights broken down to week periods. The first week period gets from the 20th to 26th of December. The coming week looks unsettled, with low pressure heading in from off the Atlantic along with the jet stream as well. So both are in agreement for week 1, definitely going to be unsettled with plenty of rain still to come. Week 2 is the 27th of December to the 2nd of January. This week sees high pressure above average heights building both to the south and to the east of us as high pressure begins to take over south and the east. Low pressure is pushed out to the northwest. Jet stream doing something like that. So that's drawing up southwesterly winds, of course. Although high pressure is trying to take over, that would be a very mild scenario due to the position of the ridge, both to the south and the east. We would draw up the air from the central Atlantic. So that would be really mild, potentially even a taste of spring. You would think with this trough of low pressure here, the southeast of Europe, that's where it would be coldest, around the Black Sea and those sort of areas. Week 3 is the 3rd to the 9th of January, again with below average heights to our north, above average heights to our south, flat westerly flow. So probably back to more unsettled conditions, if anything there. Low pressure is beginning to drive back in from the Atlantic, still mild. And then week 4, bit of a change. This is the 10th to the 16th of January. Scandinavian high is getting going then. Low pressure is out towards Greenland, Iceland. High pressure is down towards Spain and Portugal. This is a bit of a battle going on. We're trying to maintain the west-southwesterlies from the Atlantic, but also this high pressure over Scandinavia is trying to bring in easterlies. So, of course, they could be much, much colder than anything we've had so far this winter if they get to us. But that's a real battle, a real divide between the Atlantic and sort of northern parts of Europe. So that's quite interesting, but it's 4 weeks away. Very, very long way off, of course. Temperature anomalies in the week ahead from the 20th, 26th of December are milder than average, above average, not just for the UK, but for nearly all parts of Eurasia and most of America as well. It really is an exceptionally warm week to come across much of the Northern Hemisphere, actually. Week 2 is the 27th of December to the 2nd of January. Again, significantly above average for the UK, significantly above average for most parts of Europe as well. Week 3 is the 3rd to the 9th of January. That also is very substantially milder than average for most of Europe. The UK is included. And it goes on into week 4, above average temperatures from the 10th to the 16th of January for the UK and for most parts of Europe as well. Beginning to get a bit colder over in America and Canada. But overall, that's a very, very mild 4 weeks to come, exceptionally so through the middle part of winter 2019-2020. Precipitation-wise, the week ahead from the 20th to 26th of December with CFS is close to average, so not as wet as the JMA is showing. Week 2 is the 27th of December to the 2nd of January. That looks actually wetter than average as we're drawing in those long, fetch southwesterly winds with the air wafting up from the Canary Islands or the Azores, perhaps. Week 3 is the 3rd to the 9th of January. That one is also much wetter than average, and then week 4 is the 10th to the 16th of January. That one comes out around average. So it really is a bit of a mixed bag, you have to say, but the overall trend is definitely to mild conditions. There's no sign of anything cold here happening in the next 4 weeks with either the JMA or the CFS. Really, I do think that overall the JMA is the colder of the two because it's building up that ridge of high pressure, and under that high pressure in winter it's going to struggle to maintain mild conditions. But the CFS just generally looks unsettled and very mild from beginning to end, albeit there are hints of a bit of a Scandinavian high by week 4. That's a very, very long way off. It's taken us into the middle of January, and Scandinavian highs are unreliable at the best of times. So I think you say certainly into the new year, it looks like things are going to be staying pretty mild, really, if these two models are right, and potentially well on into January. Winter 2019-2020 is perhaps turning into a very mild winter. We'll be back later on with your week to 10 day video update, so come back for that then. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.